welcome to the Conscious Corner. My name is Jace, and today we will be exploring the question of God. What is God? Is there a God? What does that mean? So, I grew up agnostic, which means, at least in my family's definition, we acknowledge the fact that there was most likely some kind of higher power, but weren't too keen on exploring it much more than that. My understanding of Gnosticism is kind of the understanding that as humans we're not able to understand what God really is. So that's what I grew up with. It kept me pretty spiritually open. My parents encouraged me to go to church as a kid, which I did with my friends sometimes, but it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth for various reasons. But because of that, I went into college almost atheist, because the agnosticism didn't get me very far, and I became very science-based and science-oriented. And if it wasn't proven by science, then it wasn't true to me. But boy, was I wrong. So over the last couple years, I've kind of been going through this spiritual awakening, and I've redeveloped my sense of what I understand God is, and it's much, much different than it was a few years ago. I always thought that if there was a God, it wasn't going to be a man in the sky in flip-flops, in a robe, doing whatever else. And this is, I'm not insulting anybody else's religion. This is just my personal beliefs. Whatever God was, to me, wasn't going to be anything human or anything that resembled human. To me, if there was a God, this thing was going to be an energy that wouldn't even be recognizable to us. Going off of that and expanding more, if God is an energy, I don't think God is just any energy. I don't think God is this energy in another dimension that's watching over us. I think that's some people's view as well. I think the biggest mistake we have in our interpretation of God is the assumption that God is separate from us, that God is an individual that is distinct from any of us. And this is where I want to introduce a new word. Instead of God, I'm going to start using the word source. And to me, source is a much more accurate description of this energy that we were previously calling God. And to me, what source is the source energy that makes up everything in the cosmos. It is the energy that holds together atoms, that holds together protons, neutrons, and electrons, the energy that holds molecules together, the energy that creates life, the energy that creates light. A good equation to relate to this is Einstein's theory of E equals mc squared. Energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared. Well, that is a perfect scientific understanding of this energy that I think God really is. And to take this a step further, I want to say that the only true being in the universe, the only thing that actually exists in the universe, is this source energy. And by source energy, I mean this energy that makes up everything that we know, both animate and inanimate, even things that we wouldn't consider to be alive, like the classic four elements, wind, fire, and water. I think that the only thing that truly exists is this source. And I think that we are all a fragment of that source energy. In a sense, we are this source energy understanding itself and exploring itself through life, through the incarnate, through the physical. But that really, this is all just an illusion, and none of this really exists. And I'll get into that in a future video. Probably going to call it like, what is the Matrix or something. But this idea that we are all God, I think, is really important, or that we are all source. That divinity is not a separate entity from us. I think a lot of people think, whether it was the ancients or us now, thinking about polytheism or monotheism, there's always a separation with these divine entities. We are the divine entities. And I think that's really one of the most important things to understand in life. And the more that you start to explore this, the more you start to realize that really everything is one. There is no separation between me and you. I am you. We are all a fragment of this source energy, this source mind, this one being, this universal being. We're all just fractions, fractals, literally fractals of that energy, dispersed over billions and billions and billions and billions of different life forms throughout billions and billions and billions of galaxies. Unfathomable amount of energy. But really this energy is all one being, and I think that's what Source or God or whatever the hell you want to call it, because it's really all the same things. The more that you start to internalize that everything is one, everything comes from the same singular energy. It's a singularity of energy. And you could tie this in with the Big Bang too, and how the scientific theory of the universe came about. But I think the more that you start to internalize this, the more answers you find in life, but also the more questions arise. But with those questions come even more answers and more questions. So it leads you down a rabbit hole of wisdom. But yeah, all right, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Adios.